Alright, so today I want to update everyone on the cases from yesterday and then talk about some other important stuff that's came out since then. So let's get right into it. Canada's up to 6,258 cases with 61 dead. So we continue to hover around that 1% death rate, which is pretty good compared to other countries. So that's a pretty good sign. Again, you don't want anyone to die, but honestly, we're doing better than most other countries, so that's very encouraging. Um, Alberta had 40 new cases yesterday, which is down from 79, and I think we've been in the 60s the 2 days before that. So that's a very good sign that we're down. We're about 2 weeks into this whole quarantine thing, so that's a very good sign that the cases came down. I would keep an eye on the cases for this coming week, that if we can stay below that 50 to 60 range, then that's a good sign. That's a sign that what we're doing has been working, and hopefully we can finally go back to work and hope that things can get back to normal again. Something to keep in mind. Things aren't just going to go back to normal. Things are definitely not just going to go back to normal. It's going to take a while for that, and things may never go back to how they were before. This may be like a life-changing thing that for generations to come we remember this. I mean, this definitely will go down in history. It's just a matter of just how much of a historic event it'll be. But anyway, Alberta is up to 600, or sorry, 661 cases. Calgary has 408 of them. So again, Calgary has the vast majority of the cases. So if you're in Calgary, you definitely got to worry. Edmonton 149, Central 46, 12 in the south, 45 in the north, and then like I say, the three dead. Alberta is much lower than the national average for the death rate, which is a very good sign. And then Alberta is also up to 44,999 people have been tested. So again, of the people that have been tested, we were looking at maybe 1.5% of people that actually get tested that have it. So if you think you might have it, it's highly unlikely. But again, it doesn't hurt to get tested. Like I said, if it was me and I just had moderate symptoms, I'm a young person with a healthy immune system, I probably wouldn't even go just because I don't think it's worth it. But again, that's completely up to you. That's just my opinion personally. Um, but like I say, it is a good sign that we're down to 40 cases. Personally, I think that at least as of today, I think that the reaction to this is largely an overreaction. I don't think that all businesses should have been closed. I think schools, universities, places where there's a lot of people probably should have been closed. People that are either older or have poor immune systems should have been quarantined, because they're the people that are most likely to die by quite a bit. Like I say, if you're under 60 and you have a healthy immune system, you don't really have much to worry about. So that's what I would say, that rather than completely uprooting the economy, I think that looking back, that's probably something we should have done, but it's too late now. But anyway, let's talk about some other stuff here. Um, the facts are undeniable. Tam was relayed at every turn, focused on political correctness and lecturing when the virus could have been stopped, and seemed less informed of the risks than a concerned general public and the MPs pushing for action. Again, this Teresa Tam is, I don't even know what her official position is in the government, but um, she was one of the top people in this whole, virus situation in the Liberal government. Um, and again, it makes no sense that the fact that, like, I know I've lectured about it before, but I got to bring it up again, that like again, people's lives are at stake, people's savings, people's mortgages, people's jobs are at stake, and you're more worried about political correctness than this kind of stuff. Like, come on, like, get a grip. It's absolutely insane, and it just goes to show just how big of a bubble that some of these leftists are in. Like, nobody on the right, I mean, there's a very small percentage, but nobody on the right would hold on to their BS political. I mean, there's no such thing really as political correctness on the right. But let's say you're like some strong religious person or something like that. Like, no one in the right mind would hold on to that kind of you know political correctness when literally people's lives are at stake. Like, I know it's just 61 people, but again, those are 61 people that more than likely still could be alive if we would have taken this seriously. It was brought up in the House of Commons on January 29th that other countries were restricting travel or flat out banning it. And again, it was racism, not the fact that people's lives could have been saved. You look at some of these other countries that took a very early hard stance on this. They haven't been hit very hard. They haven't been hit very hard. Um, but again, it makes zero sense, and I wanted to bring it up because it's important because our economy is completely in the gutter right now, and maybe if we would have taken this seriously earlier, which many people, there was no shortage of people that weren't warning about it, we wouldn't be behind the eight ball so bad right now. And that's something I wanted to bring up because it's important. And again, like I can't stress this enough that if you want to disagree with someone politically in a normal day-to-day function, fine, go ahead and do it. But again, when people's lives are at stake, when the entire economy is at stake, save your BS political correctness for another time. Like, please just do that. Because if you're more worried about that, what you're saying is that there's literally nothing that's going to get you to change your mind. And if there's literally nothing that's going to get you to change your mind, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because you're never going to get through to people. Like, no one in the right mind would listen to you. And that's what you say. A lot of these people, like, you look at the tweets from, Justin Trudeau when he cited her and all this kind of stuff. Like, most of the comments were like, yeah, this person's out of their mind. Like, they're more worried about imaginary racism than this kind of stuff. And again, it's not even like it was real racism. It wasn't like it's the Chinese government that dropped the ball on this firstly. Like it it just it really boggles my mind. But again, anyway, I'm not going to talk about this anymore because it just bothers me so much. This is from Ryan Fournier, the CEO of pharmaceutical giant Novartis, just said this. Preclinical studies in animals, as well as first data from clinical studies, show that hydroxychloroquine kills the coronavirus. President Trump was right again. And again, this is something that's a very good sign, too, that I've seen people that are, literally at their last leg, the ventilators can't keep up, and they took this and it killed the virus. And again, we're still a little early in the process, but again, this is a very hopefully there's a lot of potential behind this, I guess is the best way to put it. There's a lot of potential behind it. And the problem is that Trump was the one who was touting it. He was citing, he got it from the French, I believe, who were studying it. And Trump picked up on that and he touted it. And the problem with this kind of stuff is I think a lot of people are going to downplay it and maybe not even use it. Like I could see Canada not even wanting to use it because Trump touted it. And again, although it seems petty, like people would say, "Oh, you really think the Canadian government will be that petty?" Yeah, I think they'll be that petty. If they were willing to call people racist for wanting to close the borders when it clearly was the better option, like clearly, then yeah, they're already dropped to a level that's much lower than this. So that's something I would look out for. Look for countries to not want to use it or to downplay it or be like the whole it doesn't work, the same as they did with the closing borders and restricting travel and all this kind of stuff. So look out for that. But again, this does show a lot of potential, and hopefully they continue studying it because we need something to help this out. This is from Isaac Stonefish. No big deal, just Wuhan residents estimating that 46,800 people died in their city from the virus instead of the government's official figure of roughly 2,500. Um, again, um, I don't think anybody with a brain trusts the Chinese government. Like how deep does your head have to be in the sand to trust the Chinese government? The number is clearly higher than what they say it is. The question is just how much higher. Now they guess this number because it's based on cremation figures. So again, that's a pretty good way of doing it. You have about 8 million people in China that they're no longer have their cell plan. So that's something that goes to show, hey, there's probably, it wouldn't surprise me if in the millions of people died from this in China. That's probably a very high number, but I bet you that there were millions of people infected. Um, Probably around that 8 million mark. That doesn't seem like too crazy of an amount. And if, let's say, a half a million people died from it, wouldn't surprise me in the least bit. Maybe 400,000 to continue at that 3-4% death rate. I guess it would be a little lower, but never mind that. The point I wanted to bring up is that a lot more people died in China from this than the government's letting on. Like I say, the question is just how much. Again, we don't know, but again, don't trust China. They're clearly lying. Anybody citing China is insane, and again, that's just something I wanted to bring up. But the last point I wanted to bring up here is from Pierre Poilievre. Trudeau now claims he set aside for a rainy day. He did not pay off one penny of debt or put one penny in a rainy day fund of any kind. In fact, he added about 70 billion in new debt before the first COVID case hit our shores. He started this year with a $27 billion deficit, which again, he stated when he was running in 2015 that they were going to have a balanced budget by now, which they don't. The deficit's more than ever. And this is the problem that, like I always say, I'll put it this way. If I was running the government, I mean, there would have been debts before, but if I was running the government the whole time, or someone, let's just say someone like me, there wouldn't be deficits. There wouldn't be deficits. And when something like this came, well, guess what? There would be zero inflation from the past years because one of the basic definitions of inflation is when it's expanding the money supply. And by running deficits, you have to expand the money supply. And that's the thing, is that there would be zero inflation, which means every time you earn more money, that's real money you're getting. Because right now, if you get a 5% pay raise, you're not actually gaining 5% because there's inflation. Now, the government official numbers from inflation are questionable, but again, you're not actually gaining that much. If you gained a 5% in pay raise in salary, and there was zero inflation, there was zero deficits, then that's real. That's a real 5% extra you earned. So that's the key with that. And the other key is that if something like this came along, we could easily run a moderate deficit, because if something like this came along, we'd have no debt whatsoever, which means running a modest deficit wouldn't inflate the currency much, because we'd never run deficits. We could easily get through something like this. The problem now is that we have such massive deficits that we can't run an even more big deficit, because that just means inflation's going to go up by that much more, which hurts the poor and people on fixed incomes the most, because if you're poor or on a fixed income, and the money supply inflates 5 or 10%, well, you just lost 5 or 10%. You just got a pay cut, even though you technically didn't just get a pay cut. So that's something that inflation really hurts, and that's something that, for all these people that defend, free healthcare, massive welfare, all this kind of stuff, that they refuse to acknowledge. And I always point it out, but again, they refuse to acknowledge it, that when you do this kind of stuff, the only way to pay for that stuff is through deficits, because you can't afford it, because whenever you do that kind of stuff, you just create more and more people dependent upon it. So they always claim that they support this kind of stuff because they care so much about the poor, but they refuse to acknowledge the fact that their policy hurts the poor in a pretty direct way. So that's something I just wanted to point out, that is pretty important and people should know. And again, the whole deficit thing makes no sense. And the fact that he's clearly lying too, again, to be fair, I know someone will point this out, that you're just being biased against Trudeau. I understand conservatives run deficits too. That's one thing that whenever I bring up Trump, I've said it multiple times, that one of the big criticisms I have of him is they're still running a big deficit. And I know the conservatives do this kind of stuff too. But again, first of all, I'm not really a conservative, and it doesn't matter either, in that there's a liberal government in charge of Canada right now. So if there's a conservative government in charge of Canada right now, I would be mad about that too. And again, I just wanted to point that out. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more. I do have my PayPal linked in the description. I do have an email address for e-transfer, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already.